Hey, MCE crew, they want to control you via your pocketbook. I know we talk about this a lot, but more and more evidence becomes apparent every day. They will get into who they are in just a second. They are broadcasting this. They're telling you they're not shy about it. Now, because there are only so many hours in the day, and Americans and people in the Western world are typically, with all of the access to information that we have, we're typically tied up with sports, these silly ass celebrities and what they've got going on, and things like the Ukraine, which, war is hell, okay? But really, we've got a lot of problems right here in this country that we can occupy ourselves with at this time. And one of them is the fact that we're sailing into these waters where the powers that be are bound and determined to snatch your freedom away, and they're going to be controlling you like a marionette on a string, down to what you think, what you eat, and if you don't believe it, let's start off with Mr. Augustine Carstens. He is one of the big wigs over at the Bank of International Settlements. Who are they? Well, we've gone over them before. The Bank of International Settlements is the central bank of central banks. Okay, they consult all of the central banks of the world, from the Bank of England to the Federal Reserve Bank here in America, even to the Bank of China. Okay, the Royal Bank of Canada, on and on and on. Okay. Well, not the Royal Bank of Canada. That's a private company, but the whatever the Fed equivalent is up in Canada. So let's get into what he said. Let's cover what he said first about the creation of a central bank digital currency.
Our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. And there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
All right, you heard it from the horse's mouth. He was very explicit, very upfront, didn't obfuscate at all, basically said, hey, when you take that $100 bill out of your pocket and you run around and you do whatever it is you want to do with it, we don't have any control over that. Okay, there's no way to exercise any influence upon you when you have that paper note all unto yourself. There is a way to control you if the money or the currency is digital. Now, this was a while ago, this was a few months ago, when Saul Amrova had been nominated by Joe Biden to become the comptroller of the currency of the United States of America. We did several videos on her and the fact that she is a Soviet. She's not a Russian, she's a Soviet. Go back and watch those videos and we'll explain why. Now let's hear from her as she tells you pretty much the same thing he just told you, that the Fed needs to be able to control what you do with your money, or even the access you have to it. She wants the Fed to be able to cut off the spigot and start it back up when they want to with regard to your money. Let's hear from Saul Amrova.
So that's that's where my paper is kind of taking off and kind of trying to run with that ball and see how we can push the idea of creating Fed accounts, digital dollar deposit accounts that would be universally available to everybody at the Fed, to kind of push it a little bit to the limit and to imagine what would it be like if instead of being just a public option for deposit banking, this would be actually the full transition. In other words, there will be no more private bank deposit accounts, and all of the deposit accounts will be held directly at the Fed. And there are very interesting implications from that thought experiment. For example, with the much more direct and proactive tools of monetary policy, like helicopter money, which is, considered radical primarily because economists really do not know how to manage the issue of what will happen in the inflationary environment when the central bank needs to contract the supply of money. How is it politically feasible for the central bank to effectively take money away from people's accounts? And so in this paper, I try to figure out a mechanism that would actually achieve that goal functionally.
All right, so you're being condensed. The plan is by these powerful forces throughout the world. We're talking about, when we say they, who are they? They are, as we've seen, the Bank of International Settlements. We just heard from that individual. They are the U.S. government, in this instance, specifically the Biden administration. And let me make one thing clear. Congress, when you go out to vote and you vote for your congressman, your senator, your president, whomever, understand something extremely important. You know who you don't get to vote for? You don't get to vote for those people who are in the bureaucracy, those people who are running these governmental agencies. You don't know who they are. You don't know how long they've been. I'll give you a perfect example. Dr. Anthony Fauci. He is the longest serving, highest paid government employee in the United States of America, and you just started hearing about him 2 years ago. He is a classic bureaucrat. Guys, I was a lobbyist, okay? This is how it works. When you get legislation, you remember the whole "I'm just a bill"?
But how I hope and pray that I will, but today I am still just a bill.
He signed your bill, now you're a law.
Oh, yes!
When legislation is signed by the president, by the executive, that is just the start, okay? That's just the beginning of the journey. Now it goes from a legislative matter to a regulatory matter. And what I mean by that is, in terms of the regulatory piece, this thing goes to, that legislation can hit several different agencies. And from those agencies, they start writing regulation. And you might have 2 pages of legislation that the president signed off on. And that could easily become 2,000 pages of regulation. That's why once your feet hit the floor, when you get up in the morning, it's quite possible that you've already broken several laws or violated several regulations because there's so many out there, okay? So that's who they are. They are this vast bureaucracy that creates these regulations that, you got to pay lobbyists millions of dollars to just try to figure out your little piece of it, okay? They are these entities like the Bank of International Settlement, the World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund. They are re-engineering the global economy, and they're doing it with an eye toward seizing your liberty, economic and otherwise. Now, this ain't T-Bone talking this shit. This is the guy, Augusta Carstens and Saul Umrova. Now, you might say, well, Umrova didn't get nominated. She didn't. However, she didn't get confirmed, but she did get nominated, okay? You're not going to nominate someone unless you're trying to telegraph what your real intent is. Okay, so the intent is to have a system set up whereby more control is exercised over the citizen via a digital currency. Leo Brainerd, she is a high-ranking Federal Reserve official. Some thought that she was going to be the Federal Reserve chair. She still might be one day. And she's a big fan of central bank digital currencies. So, again, do you really think that if they're going whole hog in developing these types of technologies, Do you really think that they're going to allow you to then opt out of that and go to a competing digital platform like Bitcoin? Okay. All right. Well, you think about that. Now, what can you do? Well, there are some entities, there are some financial entities that are not controlled by the Federal Reserve. However, everything in life is a trade-off. Credit unions, for example, they're not regulated by the Federal Reserve. They are regulated, but not by the Federal Reserve. That could be an alternative in your strategy to kind of divest yourself of these overlords over at the Federal Reserve. Now, legislation can change on a dime. The situation can be one way today. Congress can meet tomorrow. And by next week, everything we're talking about right now could be totally invalidated. I had a professor who also worked for a while. He was a state senator here in Maryland. And he said when he was talking about the state legislature, but it goes for all legislatures, all legislative bodies. He said when the legislature meets, that is the point in your life where your life, liberty, and property is under greatest threat. Okay? This guy was a Democrat too, and he understood that. So understand who they is. Understand what they want to do. So you're looking at credit unions. That's one entity that's not controlled by the Federal Reserve Bank at this point. You've got to have a relationship with some sort of transactional entity like a bank or a credit union because you got to pay your bills, and there's a convenience factor there. But you shouldn't have, in my opinion, this is my opinion, and I could be, an escapee from an asylum. So you have to do your due diligence. But for my money, I'm not having any more in a bank than I need to cover my expenses, okay? Because that's convenient. Now, I will invest in a bank every day of the week because the money changes everything channel, while growing, we are a small channel. We know what's going on out here, but we're so small, we don't pose a threat to the overall structure of what they're doing. So I will invest in a bank 7 days a week because banks have one hell of a business model. We've talked about fractional reserve lending and spreads and things like that. So I love banks from the standpoint of an investment. Also love banks from the standpoint of being able to get a loan, especially a loan on real estate. In order to leverage that investment, I can control $1 million worth of real estate by just putting up $200,000. That's leverage. That's great. So banks have their purpose, but understand the Federal Reserve Bank wants to control you. You think that they're going to allow you to get up and go wherever you want to go when we have an electric car that has all kinds of computers in it and is able to be, interdicted with the touch of a button? Think I'm joking? In that infrastructure bill, Biden wrote in that there needs to be, car manufacturers need to incorporate anti-drunk driving technology into the car, where the car needs to test you before you, start riding. That's crazy. There's no bigger opponent to drunk driving, but most people don't drink and drive. Okay, but this is being masked. It's a control mechanism. The technology will be used to develop ways to control your ability to travel. Okay, that's what it's really all about. Understand these things because we talk a lot in this country about slavery and how this country went through that period of slavery, okay, with black people. Guess what? This economic slavery is for everybody, okay? This is being designed for everybody, okay? Unless you are the Warren Buffetts, Charlie Mungers, Elon Musk. Hell, they might put Elon Musk in a cell before it's all over because he doesn't toe the line like, say, a Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett do. So the like I was saying, the credit unions are for now an alternative to banks. Another interesting thing about credit unions is that they are member owned. Now, a bank is probably, especially if you're dealing with a big bank, bank's going to be owned by the shareholders, okay? And it's going to be managed by board of directors, who are usually the Harvard and Yale grads and folk like that, who are totally removed from the interest of most Americans. They're on a different planet economically, socioeconomically. However, a lot of credit unions have boards with board members who may be your neighbor, quite literally. I have a neighbor who used to be a board member of a credit union, and we are not living in Beverly Hills, okay? So you've got that. You've got, so you got a board that's more, resembles more of a real people, real economic situations, the prevailing economic situation of the United States of America. And then it's owned by the members. So there's a little different dynamic there. It's not driven by Wall Street. It's driven by the interest of the members. The other thing, there's another financial institution, insurance companies. You don't think about them because Americans have developed this myopic view of what an insurance company is. Insurance companies are among the largest financial institutions in the world. In fact, that's how Warren Buffett makes his money. Berkshire Hathaway is a company that owns several insurance companies. And insurance companies take in premiums and they invest that money. So he has to create a return for his investors, for his policyholders in many cases. And so the insurance company structure allows him to do that. Insurance companies that you get a permanent life policy on, not that it doesn't. Somebody talked to me the other day like, oh man, I got so many health problems, I can't do it. But you can take out life insurance on a loved one, like your grandchildren who are going to live for 100 years. You can get very low premiums and still take advantage of the cash accumulation inside these different types of permanent policies. Okay, so that's another way to have your money grow. All right, and somebody invariably, the insurance company got fees. Everywhere has fees. Okay, if you're really going to grow some money, you're going to encounter some fees because someone somewhere is doing some work. Now, you could put your money in a savings account for free and then get 0.5% interest and, double your money in, 120 years. You could do that and then think about the lost opportunity cost. They would be much greater than the cost you put out in insurance cost. All right. There's always gold and silver that you own physically. Okay, that's another gold, especially as a form of money. Difference between currency and money. Money doesn't have to be backed by a government. Okay, money just is readily recognizable, divisible, and tradable. Okay, so that's what's going on. Those are some steps you can take to mitigate your exposure to the Fed, okay? But keep in mind, these are moving targets. We've got to, dip and dodge and dance because the rules are always changing. It's not like we're going to cover something and that's going to be it, okay? We're like doctors. Doctors have to keep on learning, okay? Constantly. Airline pilots got to keep on learning. There is no destination point for our financial knowledge, for any set of knowledge, actually. We're always learning. And financial independence is not a destination. It is a journey that we will, be on. Of course, we will prosper along that journey, but it's a journey. It's not a destination. And it's something that you have to maintain, okay? So take that for what it's worth. Let me leave you with this. There is a professor, okay, who's saying that, hey, let them eat lentils. There was a queen, Marie Antoinette, who said, let them eat cake. And you see what happened to her. Guys, I'll talk to you soon. To learn more about how you can achieve financial independence, check out these videos we recently posted on the Money Changes Everything channel.